There is a war inside you, not the kind fought with guns and banners, but the kind that unfolds in silence beneath your polite smile, behind the mask you show to the world. It is the war between the self you parade in the daylight and the self you bury in the dark. Carl Jung called it the shadow, not because it is evil, but because it is unseen, because you have banished it from the kingdom of your conscious mind. You've locked it in the dungeon and told yourself it doesn't exist. But here is the truth. What you exile does not disappear. It grows stronger in the darkness, waiting for the moment to return. Most people believe they are entirely who they think they are. They wear their identity like a fixed badge. I am this, I am not that. But every I am you cling to has an opposite you've disowned. And it's that disowned part, resentful, wounded, starved, that lives in your shadow. You see, the shadow is not some abstract psychological theory. It is living, breathing reality. It is in the anger you refuse to admit, the jealousy you disguise as moral outrage, the lust you mask as romantic love. It is in the cruelty you hide behind your civility. Every saint has a devil, and every devil wears a saint's face. The shadow is ancient. It is as old as humanity. It whispered to Cain before he killed his brother. It sat beside Caesar as he crossed the Rubicon. It danced with every tyrant before they raised the flag of justice over a graveyard. And it lives inside you no matter how virtuous you believe yourself to be. Society trains you to amputate half your nature. As a child, you learned what was acceptable and what was unacceptable. You were rewarded when you smiled at the right time, punished when you displayed rage, mocked when you showed vulnerability. Slowly, you became a fragmented thing, a curated performance, a mannequin dressed in your own skin. But the shadow never forgets what you've thrown away, and it does not die. Instead, it leaks out in your passive-aggressive words, in your secret habits, in your unexplained mood swings. It leaks out when you condemn others for qualities you secretly recognize in yourself. The more you suppress it, the more it finds ways to own you from the inside out. This is why your life feels like a pattern, why you repeat the same mistakes in new disguises, why the same types of people keep hurting you, the same frustrations keep boiling up, the same fears keep sabotaging your ambition. It is not fate, it is your shadow, pulling the strings while you pretend you are the master. The greatest danger of the shadow is not that it exists, but that you deny it exists. Because in denying it, you give it ultimate control. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You will keep blaming the world, keep pointing at enemies, keep cursing your bad luck, without ever realizing the architect of your suffering lives under your own skin. The modern world feeds this blindness. Social media, politics, religion, even self-help, they all encourage you to polish your image instead of confronting your depths. They tell you to focus on the positive, to be your best self, to cut out negativity. But the parts of you you label negative are not your enemy. They are your compass. They are the map back to wholeness. When you meet your shadow, you meet the parts of yourself you swore you'd never be. You meet the addict, the liar, the coward, the tyrant, the manipulator. And in the same breath, you meet your hidden courage, your raw desire, your unclaimed power. Because the shadow does not only hold your darkness, it holds the gold you were too afraid to touch. Do you think ambition is only light? No, it is also hunger, greed, a willingness to disrupt. Do you think love is only gentle? No, it is also possessive, consuming, demanding. Do you think strength is only noble? No, it is also ruthless, capable of violence when necessary. The shadow is not about becoming a monster. It is about reclaiming the teeth you once pulled from your own mouth. When you integrate your shadow, you become unpredictable. You no longer fit neatly into society's boxes. People cannot manipulate you by appealing only to your good side, because your dark side is no longer a stranger to you. You can look into the abyss without flinching, because you've walked through it and returned whole. And this is why most people will never do it, because meeting your shadow means the death of the image you've worshipped. It means no longer being able to play innocent. It means realizing you are not purely victim, not purely hero, not purely anything. You are both creator and destroyer, light and dark, angel and animal. The question is, will you face this truth voluntarily, or will you wait until life rips away the mask for you? Because life will. The longer you avoid the shadow, the more violently it bursts through, in relationships that collapse without warning, in sudden betrayals, in self-sabotage so perfect it feels like destiny. These are not accidents, they are messages from the darkness within, screaming to be acknowledged. Jung understood what few dare to say today. Morality without integration is hypocrisy. The person who preaches tolerance but cannot tolerate their own rage will become a fanatic. The person who champions peace but refuses to acknowledge their own aggression will create conflict in the name of harmony. You cannot outrun the truth of your nature. You can only bury it, and buried things rot. To confront your shadow is to step into the most dangerous terrain, the landscape of your own mind. But it is also the only path to real freedom. Because once you know the worst in yourself and can hold it without shame, no one can blackmail you with your own humanity. No insult can shake you. No enemy can unearth something you haven't already claimed. You become immune, not by being untouchable, but by being whole. And wholeness is not perfection. It is the union of opposites, the marriage of saint and sinner, order and chaos, masculine and feminine, love and rage. It is the lion lying down with the lamb within you. The world tells you to choose a side between your light and your dark. But Jung's truth and life's truth is that the self is not a battlefield where one side must win. It is a kingdom where both must rule. If you cannot bow to both, you will serve one as a slave and mistake it for freedom. The shadow is not what makes you evil, it is what makes you real. You will not find the shadow by sitting politely in meditation, waiting for it to knock. It does not appear to the polite. It does not answer to the soft summons of self-improvement. The shadow emerges only when you are willing to betray your own illusions. It begins when you dare to ask the questions you've avoided your entire life. Why do I hate the people I hate? Why do I judge what I judge? Why do I always feel superior in some ways, inferior in others? Why do I want what I say I don't want? Why do I fear what I say I don't fear? Every answer will lead you to something uncomfortable, something that undermines the image you've carefully built. And that's the first sign you are on the right path. Jung once said that meeting the shadow is like meeting a stranger you've known all your life. The recognition is immediate, but so is the recoil. You will see the face of your jealousy and realize it has been yours all along. You will watch the flicker of cruelty in your own eyes and remember every moment you swore you were incapable of such a thing. The shadow hides in the moments you think you're being most righteous. That sharp moral outrage you feel when someone else lies. It is often the echo of the liar you buried in yourself. That contempt you feel for someone's weakness, it's the contempt you secretly feel for your own. Projection is the shadow's favorite camouflage, turning your disowned traits into someone else's problem. This is why relationships are the most powerful mirrors for shadow work. Every person you meet will carry a fragment of you, and your emotional reactions will tell you exactly which fragmented island. The one you adore carries the qualities you've suppressed but admire. The one you despise carries the qualities you've suppressed and cannot bear to face. Both are teachers, though one will feel like an ally, the other like a threat. To integrate the shadow, you must step into radical honesty, not the kind you wield against others like a weapon, but the kind you turn inward like a scalpel. You must be willing to admit, yes, I am capable of this. Yes, this lives in me. Even if you never act on it, you acknowledge it as part of your nature. Integration is not indulgence. Recognizing your capacity for cruelty does not mean becoming cruel. Acknowledging your lust does not mean losing yourself to it. It means refusing to be blind, because blindness is the real danger, not darkness. Imagine a king who believes his enemies can only come from outside the walls. He posts guards at the gates, fortifies the borders, and never notices the assassin who was born inside the castle. That assassin is your shadow when you refuse to know it. The moment you meet it face to face, you take away its disguise. But here's the paradox. When you stop fearing the shadow, it stops ruling you. The moment you can say, yes, I am capable of hate, your hate loses its ability to sneak out sideways, poisoning your life in ways you don't understand. The moment you can say, yes, I am capable of betrayal, you stop needing to prove to the world how loyal you are, and you become truly loyal by choice, not by fear. The great danger of modern positivity culture is that it sells you light while teaching you to fear the dark. It turns you into a prisoner in half your own house. You decorate the rooms you're allowed to see, post pictures of them online, and pretend the locked basement doesn't exist, while the real treasures and the real dangers both live down there. Jung called the process of integrating the shadow individuation the becoming of a whole, undivided person. It is not comfortable. It will shatter the identity you've curated. It will strip you of the false innocence that once made you likable. You will lose the ability to flatter yourself with the idea that you are above certain human flaws. But in exchange, you will gain something rare in this age: sovereignty over yourself. And sovereignty is terrifying to those who have never faced themselves. Because once you are whole, you cannot be controlled, not by flattery, not by shame, not by fear. The strings that once pulled you are cut. History's most powerful figures, those who moved nations, shifted cultures, defied empires, were never men or women who only embraced the light. They were those who could look into the depths of their own capacity for destruction and channel it toward creation. They did not repress their rage, they weaponized it for justice. They did not deny their ambition, they harnessed it to build. They did not pretend to be pure, they knew purity was a fragile illusion, and they preferred truth. The integration of the shadow is not about becoming good, it is about becoming real, and reality is always more dangerous than the image. Once you begin, you will notice a strange transformation. The people who once triggered you no longer have the same hold over you. Their arrogance won't ignite your defensiveness because you've owned your own arrogance. Their deceit won't send you into a spiral because you've looked your own deceit in the eye. You will move through the world with a different kind of calm, not the fragile calm of avoiding confrontation, but the unshakable calm of someone who has already wrestled with their inner beast and lived to tell the tale. When this happens, people will sense it. Some will admire you. Others will fear you. A few will try to tear you down, not because you've wronged them, but because your wholeness reminds them of their own fragmentation, and you must let them react as they will. The shadow teaches you that you are not here to be universally liked. You are here to be whole, and wholeness will always disturb the half-built. The first thing you must understand is this: you cannot integrate the shadow from a distance. You cannot analyze it as if it were a specimen in a glass jar. The shadow lives in the places where you lose control, and so the only way to meet it is to step into the fire willingly. This is where most people turn back. They want self-mastery without self-confrontation, peace without war, light without heat. They want to be above their shadow while keeping their hands clean. But the shadow will not meet you on the balcony. You must go down into the basement. You must create deliberate conditions where the mask slips, where your most instinctive, unedited reactions come to the surface. This is the territory of real training. Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." And when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. The modern reader takes this as a warning to avoid the abyss. But that's cowardice disguised as wisdom. The truth is that the abyss will gaze into you whether you like it or not. The difference is whether you are prepared for the gaze. So you go to the edges of your patients. You enter the conversations that make your pulse spike. You face the people whose existence feels like a personal insult. And instead of running from the heat, you study it. You catch your mind in the act, watch the flash of jealousy, the swell of anger, the impulse to destroy. This is where the shadow shows its face. And here's the key. You do not shame it. You do not deny it. You do not justify it. You acknowledge it as yours. This is me. This is part of what I am. The moment you own it, the shadow loses the power to possess you from behind the curtain. It steps out into the light, and you become its master instead of its puppet. Ancient warrior cultures understood this deeply. The samurai practiced seishin tanren, the forging of the spirit, by putting themselves in controlled situations where fear, anger, and pride would rise, then learning to ride those states instead of being drowned by them. The Spartans drilled in brutal, humiliating conditions, not just to strengthen their bodies, but to tame the shadow's rage, to keep it ready but sheathed until the exact moment it was needed. You are not so different from them. Your battles may not be fought with steel, but your enemies, internal and external, are no less real. And your shadow is your most dangerous soldier. Without discipline, it becomes a rogue agent, sabotaging you at every turn. With discipline, it becomes the weapon that no one can take from you. This is why avoidance is poison. Every time you dodge confrontation, every time you suppress the emotion instead of facing it, the shadow learns that it can rule you from the dark. You become a servant to your own avoidance. The training is to do the opposite. Seek out the edge. Not recklessly, not to drown, but to wade into the current often enough that the waters no longer terrify you. For example, if you are someone who fears conflict, you begin by allowing yourself to speak the truth you normally swallow. You watch your own fear flare up, the guilt that follows, the urge to take it back, and you do not give in. You sit with it. If you are someone who hides their ambition to seem humble, you begin by admitting, at least to yourself, the exact scope of what you want, even if it makes you seem greedy. If you are someone who pretends to be endlessly compassionate, you acknowledge the resentment building under that mask and trace it back to where you've been denying your own boundaries. Each time you do this, you take another brick out of the wall between you and your shadow. The more you train, the more you discover that the shadow is not only a storehouse of what you fear, it is a storehouse of your buried strength. Many people think they are too nice to lead, too sensitive to be powerful, too rational to be passionate. What they don't realize is that these limits are not their nature. They are their domestication. The shadow contains the raw, unedited parts of you that were too wild for the world to approve of. But wildness is not weakness. Wildness is fuel. When you integrate the shadow, you begin to draw from that fuel consciously. The rage you once used to destroy yourself becomes the fire you use to protect your vision. The envy you once turned outward becomes a compass pointing to what you secretly desire. The fear you once let paralyze you becomes a signal of where your next growth lies. At this point, people will start to misunderstand you. They will mistake your groundedness for coldness, your boundaries for arrogance, your ability to face darkness for cynicism. Let them. They do not understand the cost of wholeness because they have never paid it. And the cost is this: you must kill the image of yourself that made you comfortable. You must betray the version of you that everyone loved because it was predictable, safe, non-threatening. You must stop trying to be seen as good and instead commit to being true. Once you cross that threshold, you can no longer go back to the old performance. You will taste the freedom of standing unmasked, and all the false smiles in the world will seem like shackles. This is the way of the integrated self. You carry both the crown and the blade. You are capable of mercy because you are capable of wrath. You are capable of peace because you know the shape of war. You are not an angel pretending not to be an animal. You are both. And you have made peace with it. And when you reach this place, the shadow is no longer something you work on. It is simply part of you, loyal, alert, and ready. When you reach the end of this path, there is no ceremony, no applause, no halo descends upon your head. There is only a quiet shift, so quiet most people will never notice it. You are no longer moved by the same strings that used to control you. Insults no longer cut, because you've already insulted yourself in darker words than anyone else could. Praise no longer intoxicates, because you've already met the part of you that could abuse it. Fear no longer cages you, because you've walked willingly into the rooms you once locked from the inside. This is what true power feels like, stillness in the midst of noise. Not because you've numbed yourself, but because nothing inside you is at war anymore. The shadow no longer pulls against the light, it stands beside it. The two of you are not rivals, they are brothers in arms. People will not understand this. They will try to provoke you, thinking they can draw out the old you. They will project their own shadows onto you, begging you to play the villain in their story. And you will see through all of it, because you've seen it before inside yourself. You will notice something else too. The world starts to move differently around you. Opportunities that once passed you by will come to you, not because of luck, but because people can sense that you are dangerous in the best way possible. You cannot be bought, you cannot be shamed, you cannot be flattered into betraying yourself. This is the liberation Jung spoke of, not freedom from the world, but freedom from the unconscious compulsion to act against your own truth. The chains were never out there. They were in here, in the parts of you you refuse to see. Now they are broken. You no longer waste energy pretending. You no longer need the approval of people who live half lives. You are no longer chasing the light or running from the dark. You are carrying both in equal measure, and they move as one. And here is the most important truth you will ever hear about the shadow. It was never your enemy. It was your exiled twin, waiting for you to remember it. It held not only your capacity for destruction, but the parts of your strength, love, and creativity you were too afraid to claim. You went into the darkness not to become it, but to bring it home. You tore down the wall inside you, and what you found was not a monster, but a mirror. The face staring back at you was your own scarred, imperfect, and utterly real. Now you walk into the world whole. Not perfect, not pure, whole. And that is something no one can take from you. Because once you have met every part of yourself, there is nothing left to fear. They mistook your silence for weakness. They thought your stillness meant absence. They looked at you sitting at the edge of the room, speaking only when necessary, and they assumed nothing was happening inside you. But they could not have been more wrong, because inside you, there was thunder. Inside you, there were oceans breaking against cliffs, winds bending trees to their knees, lightning splitting the night sky. Inside you, the storm had been building for years. It began in the moments you bit your tongue instead of answering back. It began in the days you swallowed your rage because no one was listening. It began in the nights you laid in bed staring at the ceiling, rehearsing the words you never spoke, watching your dreams pace like caged animals in the dark. And because they never saw the storm, they assumed it didn't exist. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure. And when pressure builds long enough, it becomes unstoppable. Nietzsche once said, "Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." Your music was not played for them. It roared in the chambers of your mind, the visions, the plans, the truths no one else dared to name. And you learned to keep it there, hidden, because the world was not ready for the full force of what you carried. You understood something they didn't. Power grows in the shadows. It grows when you are underestimated. It grows when people talk over you, when they dismiss you, when they walk away thinking they've seen the whole of you. They have not. They've seen the mask you chose to let them see, and you wore it with precision. You learned from history, from Machiavelli, who knew that power is most dangerous when disguised, from warriors who concealed their weapons until the battle began, from revolutionaries who spoke softly while the empire thought them harmless, until the day came when the streets filled with fire. They called you quiet. But quiet is not the absence of force. Quiet is the sharpening of the blade before it strikes. Quiet is the gathering of the tide before it crashes. Quiet is the pause between lightning and thunder, the knowing, the inevitability, the breath before everything changes. And make no mistake, you are going to change everything, because storms do not build forever. They break, and when you break, you will not trickle into the world like rain, you will flood it. Every thought they ignored, every dream you shelved, every truth you swallowed will come pouring out with the force of years. They will not be ready. They never are. Because those who mistake stillness for passivity cannot comprehend what patience can do. They do not understand that every second you were silent, you were building something they couldn't see, the discipline to wait, the clarity to strike only when it mattered, the resilience to endure every insult, every dismissal, every underestimation. And this is why you will not simply speak. When your time comes, you will roar. Your words will not be tentative. They will be forged in the pressure of all the words you held back. Your actions will not be hesitant. They will be the result of years of watching, learning, and calculating. The storm inside you was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to teach you patience, to teach you control, to teach you the art of holding your power until the exact moment it can reshape the world. And when that moment comes, they will remember you. They will remember the one they called quiet. They will remember the one they ignored, the one they overlooked, the one they thought could be dismissed. They will remember how wrong they were, because when your storm breaks, it will not ask for permission. It will not warn them. It will not be polite. It will move through everything in its path, tearing down what must fall and watering what must grow. And when it's done, when the sky clears and the air smells of rain, you will stand there not as the quiet one anymore, but as the one who carried the storm and finally set it free. They will tell you that in order to win, you must always be loud. They will insist that visibility is the same as power. They will push you to prove yourself, to show your hand, to announce your moves before you make them. But history has already proven otherwise. The greatest empires did not fall to the armies they saw coming. They fell to the ones they never noticed until it was too late. The most dangerous minds in history were not the ones shouting in the streets. They were the ones quietly rewriting the rules, while everyone else was distracted. The greatest transformations in human life often begin in silence, behind closed doors, in the quiet hours when no one is watching. Your silence has been your forge. While they were talking, you were listening. While they were boasting, you were learning. While they were seeking validation, you were building. This is why underestimation is your greatest weapon. It blinds your opponents. It lulls them into a false sense of superiority. It keeps them from guarding themselves against you, because they've convinced themselves there's nothing to guard against. And so you move freely in the space their arrogance creates. You see everything. You remember everything. And when the time comes, you will use everything. Carl Jung knew the value of this kind of inner reserve. He understood that the true self grows in the depths beneath the surface of the personality you show the world. The persona, the mask, is not a lie, it's a tool. You've worn yours well. You've allowed the world to think you are smaller than you are, quieter than you are, less capable than you are. And in that space, you've been evolving, unseen, like roots deep beneath the soil. Roots are invisible until they break the ground. And by the time they do, they're unshakable. No one can pull them out. Because the real work was done when no one was looking. That's you. That's the storm you carry. But here is the part they will never understand until it's too late. Your silence was not the absence of action. It was a discipline to act only when it would matter most. It was the self-control to resist the ego's need to be seen, to resist the impulse to waste your energy on meaningless battles. It was the wisdom to understand that every move has a cost, and you refuse to pay that cost on anything that doesn't bring you closer to victory. When you finally move, you will move with the weight of every moment you waited. When you finally speak, your words will not be wasted. When you finally step into the light, you will not need to explain where you've been, because the results will speak in a language louder than anything you could have said. They will see you, and they will realize that the quiet one they ignored has been preparing to change the entire game. They will remember every time they dismissed you, every time they cut you off, every time they underestimated what was brewing in your mind. And they will understand too late that storms that wait always strike harder, because you have learned the ancient rhythm of nature itself. The wind whispers before it howls. The earth shifts before it quakes. The sky darkens before the lightning falls. And now, the sky inside you is black with the weight of all you've held. The air is heavy. The pressure is at its breaking point. And when you choose, the storm will finally break. And when it does, the world will never call you quiet again. They will call you something else then. Not Keat, not shy, not reserved. They will call you unstoppable. They will call you inevitable. They will call you the one they never saw coming. But you will know the truth. You did not appear out of nowhere. You were there all along, watching, absorbing, refining, like a sculptor who chips away at the marble in silence for years before revealing the statue. You were shaping yourself while no one was paying attention. And that is why your storm will not be wild chaos, it will be precision. Every drop of rain will fall exactly where it is meant to. Every flash of lightning will strike with purpose. Every movement will be deliberate, chosen, inevitable. Because storms, in their truest form, are not accidents. They are the result of 1,000 invisible conditions gathering until release becomes the only option. And you have been gathering your power through the disappointments that taught you patience, through the betrayals that sharpened your vision, through the loneliness that made you self-reliant. They thought these things were breaking you, but they were building you, building the exact pressure, the exact focus, the exact force you needed. And here is the irony. The same people who underestimated you will be the first to act surprised when you rise. They will call it sudden. They will call it luck. They will say, you changed overnight. But you will smile, because you know the truth. Nothing about this was sudden. You've been preparing for this longer than they've been paying attention. Your storm was never meant to impress them. It was meant to free you. It was meant to take every limit they placed on you and shatter it. It was meant to tear down the walls they thought you would never climb. And when the dust settles, you will still be standing, not because you survived the storm, but because you were the storm. Every drop of rain, every gust of wind, every deafening crash of thunder, all of it was you. And you will carry that knowledge into every room, every battle, every chapter of your life from this moment on. They will never call you quiet again. But you won't need them to call you anything at all, because storms don't ask for recognition. They simply arrive and change everything. And when you arrive, you will not arrive timidly. You will not slip through the back door, hoping not to be noticed. You will step through the front, head high, and the air will shift around you. People will feel it before they understand it, the presence of someone who no longer bends, no longer hides, no longer waits for permission. Because the storm inside you has done something permanent. It has burned away the parts of you that once doubted. It has drowned the voice that whispered, stay small, stay safe, stay silent. It has replaced hesitation with inevitability. And you will move differently now. Not recklessly, no. That was never your way. You will move with the patience of someone who has nothing left to prove, yet everything left to claim. Your steps will be measured, your words chosen like arrows, your presence felt even in stillness. Those who knew you before will stare, trying to reconcile the person you were with the force you've become. Some will resent you for it. They will miss the version of you that made them comfortable, the one who stayed in the shadows so they could take up more space. Others will try to claim they always knew you had it in you. But neither the resentment nor the false recognition will matter, because this was never about them. It never was. It was about you finally stepping into the power you carried all along. It was about you understanding that being underestimated was not a curse, it was your camouflage. It gave you the freedom to prepare without interference, to grow without sabotage, to observe without being observed. And now that you are here, there is no going back. The storm does not retreat into the clouds after it has broken. It moves forward, reshaping the land, carving rivers where there were none, clearing the air for new life to grow. You will do the same. You will not be the same force every day. Sometimes you will be rain that nourishes, sometimes wind that clears, sometimes lightning that shocks the sky awake. But you will always be moving, always reshaping, always reminding the world that silence is not the absence of power. It is the preparation for it. And one day, someone will look at you, at the life you've built, at the strengths in your eyes, and they will ask where it all came from. They will want to know when you decided to become this person. And you will simply say, I didn't decide. I always was. Because the truth is, you were never quiet. You were always carrying a storm. And now, the world finally knows it. And once the world knows it, everything shifts. The people who once spoke over you will now measure their words in your presence. The ones who dismissed your ideas will suddenly want to hear your thoughts, though you'll know the value of giving your voice only where it matters. Doors that were once locked will creak open, not because someone handed you the key, but because your presence alone demands they open. But here is the most important part. You will not rush through those doors. You will walk through them with the same deliberate pace you carried in the shadows. Because the storm taught you something, the impatient never learn that timing is a weapon. That striking at the right moment is worth more than striking 100 times too soon. This is the mastery your silence gave you. While others burned out chasing every opportunity, you learned to wait for the one that would change everything. While they scattered their energy in every direction, you gathered yours into a singular, unshakable force. And now that force moves through you with precision. You will carry yourself differently now, not in arrogance, but in certainty. Not in loud declarations of what you're going to do, but in the quiet assurance of someone who already knows it's done. You won't need to convince anyone, because your actions will speak in a language older and truer than words. Some will fear you now, not because you've harmed them, but because they sense you cannot be controlled. And in a world built on manipulation, a free mind is a dangerous thing. They will test you, hoping to find the old cracks in your armor. They will prod at your silence, hoping it is still the silence of suppression and not the silence of power. But they will find nothing, because your quiet now is not the quiet of retreat. It is the quiet of the hunter, the quiet of the ocean before the wave, the quiet of someone who knows they can move mountains, but chooses carefully which ones to move. And this is when you'll understand why you had to wait, why you had to be overlooked, why you had to carry that storm in secret for so long. It was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right. Now, the storm is not something you unleash only once. It lives in you, a permanent climate, a force you can summon at will. You can let it rage when the moment calls for it, or you can let it sleep while you walk through the world in stillness. Either way, it is yours. And no one, no rejection, no betrayal, no underestimation can take it from you again. Because the quiet one they thought they knew is gone. And in their place stands the storm. And the storm does not apologize for its existence. It does not shrink so others can feel tall, nor dim so others can shine brighter. It moves with its own rhythm, its own inevitability, answering only to the forces that birthed it. That is you now, unshaken, unowned, unafraid. You no longer measure yourself by how well you fit into the spaces others give you. You build your own spaces. You shape the ground beneath your feet and dare the world to keep up. because the storm taught you that waiting for permission is just another form of self-betrayal. And it's not that you've become ruthless, it's that you've become sovereign. You understand the weight of your own voice, so you use it with purpose. You understand the reach of your own hands, so you build deliberately. You understand the cost of your own energy, so you no longer give it to those who drain rather than fuel you. This is the part they won't understand. The transformation isn't just in your presence, it's in your boundaries. Before, you let anyone step into your quiet and take from it. Now, they must earn the right to stand in your calm or withstand the force of your storm. The same patience that kept you silent has now become your filter. You no longer leap at every invitation, every promise, every opportunity dressed in urgency. You let people reveal themselves fully before you decide how much of yourself they get to see. You let life unfold before deciding when and where to strike. And in this, you have mastered something rare. The balance between stillness and force. Too much stillness and nothing changes. Too much force and you burn yourself out. But you have learned to move like the seasons, to rest when it is time to rest, to grow when it is time to grow, to strike when the world least expects it. The quiet one is gone. The underestimated one is gone. And in their place is the one who understands their own magnitude. The world may still try to label you, to contain you, to define you by the old image it remembers. Let them, because while they speak in the language of yesterday, you are already living in the reality of tomorrow. You know the truth. You were never just scared. You were gathering. You were preparing. You were building the pressure of 1,000 storms. And now you are free to let them break whenever you choose. And when you choose, the release will not just be felt, it will be remembered. Because storms like yours leave landscapes changed forever. They don't simply pass through. They carve new rivers, uproot dead trees, clear the suffocating weight of stagnant air. When you move now, you move as a force of renewal and destruction, at once tearing down what no longer serves you and making space for what will. You will notice something strange when you live like this. The world begins to step aside for you without knowing why. It's not fear, though some will confuse it for that. It's recognition, a primal awareness that they are in the presence of someone who cannot be swayed by shallow temptations or small distractions. Someone who has walked through fire in silence and emerged with the flame under their own command. You will see it in the way people speak to you now, the way they hesitate before lying, the way they second guess before underestimating you. They may not know your whole story, but they feel the weight of it, like the heaviness in the air before rain. And yet, you won't live to prove them wrong anymore. That hunger is gone. You're not here for their recognition or their applause. You're here because the storm inside you demands to move, and you've learned the art of letting it. This is the evolution they will never see coming, not just the rise of your voice, but the depth of your silence. Because now your quiet is not the quiet of fear. It is the quiet of choice. It's the stillness of a predator who knows exactly when to strike. It's the calm of a mind that has seen too much to be easily rattled. The old you would have rushed to fill that quiet with explanations, with justifications, with proof of your worth. The you that carries the storm lets the quiet speak for itself. And it speaks volumes. You understand now that true power is not in constant motion, but in controlled release. A storm that rages without direction eventually destroys itself. But a storm that knows its own strength can split mountains. That is you. That is what you have become. And as you walk forward from here, you will do so without looking back. Because the life that required you to stay small, to stay silent, to stay hidden, it no longer fits. You outgrew it in the dark. You outgrew it in the waiting. You outgrew it the moment you realized your silence was not emptiness, but power in its purest form. Now the world will know the truth you've always carried. You were never fragile. You were never passive. You were never just the quiet one. You were the storm waiting for its moment. And now That moment is yours. And so you stand here now, no longer in the shadows, no longer in the waiting. The air around you carries that unspoken charge, the kind that makes people glance at the sky and wonder if something is coming. They don't realize it's already here. You are the storm they never saw forming, the one that gathered in silence, biding its time while the world thought it could ignore you. The one that fed on every doubt, every dismissal, every locked door, until the weight of it became impossible to contain. Now you move, not to prove, but to become. Every step forward is the sound of thunder rolling across the horizon. Every choice you make is a flash of lightning that cuts through the fog of their complacency. And you know with the certainty of the earth itself that nothing will ever be the same. They will try to remember what you were like before this. Some will swear you changed overnight. Others will pretend they always saw this in you. But you will smile because you know the truth. This was never a sudden arrival. This was years in the making. This was the storm you've carried your entire life, finally let loose into the world. And as you look ahead, you will see no walls, only open sky. You will feel no hesitation, only the pull of your own inevitability. You will need no validation, only the knowledge that you are exactly what you were always meant to be. They called you quiet. They called you small. They called you forgettable. But now they will call you something else. They will call you power. They will call you change. They will call you the storm that came and never left. And you will call yourself free.